Welcome, everyone, to Magical Aspirations, a podcast for magical people where we aspire to gather all of the knowledge that magic has to offer. It's a place to illuminate and demystify all things magical.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to Magical Aspirations. It's Adreyauna. And of course, y'all know I'm joined by the bestest co-host in the world, Annalisa and Reverend Raven.
Hello.
Coco!
And I am extremely excited to talk about this topic, which is all about hypnosis. We have a beautiful guest. Her name is Yolanda. She is the founder of Trinity Holistic Hypnosis, and we were connected through a mutual friend that all three of us know. So we're going to go into that detail, but she is just absolutely phenomenal. So say hello, Yolanda.
Hello, people. How are you?
And we are excited to learn more about what the heck is hypnosis. Is it safe? Is it a thing that we should try? So yeah, of course, y'all know we're into all the magical topics. So without further ado, let's jump in. Yay!
Let's do
it. So exciting.
Oh, well, Yolanda, welcome. So just to give y'all some backstory. Okay, so I believe I connected with you, Yolanda, through Dix Marie. Yes?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I forgot about that.
I know. And they had asked me about this before we got on the call, and I was like, who actually connected us? Because I know it was a person, but like, who was this person? And I looked back through my messages and saw that it was Dix Marie. And so Dix Marie, we all three know because Dix Marie took a tarot class with us in New Orleans, which is why we're all connected to begin with.
Gotcha.
And so we stand Dix Marie. If you're listening, Dix Marie, we love you.
If you're listening, hello.
And she was just phenomenal. So I believe that's how you and I got connected. And then from there, it's just I had a session with you, which was also really phenomenal. And I would love to talk about how that went for me as well. So yeah, time is crazy. I do not know when that was, but it was some year ago or more.
Yeah, it was a couple years ago, I feel like.
Yeah, that feels good. Yeah.
Okay, go with that. Yeah.
What is time? We don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful. So, Yolanda, to start off, why don't you tell us what are your magical aspirations?
Wow. Okay. So let's see. My number one magical aspiration is that our global citizenry become that of at least a level 1 civilization. Right now, the Earth is a level 0, which means disunity and war, and using more resources than we have. And in my lifetime, my magical aspiration would be to see us at least get to civilization number 1, which means that we are peaceful, we have life-supporting technologies, and that we are not warring with ourselves or anyone else.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. Yes, please.
Wow, way to just set the bar like in the heavens, right?
But actually,
that's insane. I love that.
You know,
we're on board.
It took me a while to get there. And, I'll go back a little bit farther and say, I knew that I was a spirit having a human adventure in my early teens, right around 13, 14, somewhere in there. And it's not like a lot of people that I hear about that remembered past lifetimes or anything like that. I just, had spirit whisper to me in little ways and be like, you're the same as a blade of grass and a star in the sky. And I remember I had this brand new calligraphy set, as girls do when they're practicing
Yes.
penmanship. And I wanted to find something to write. So instead of doing something from that Michael Jackson said or something from Tiger Beat or whatever, magazine or celebrity that I was really into at that point, I found this quote by, and I'm going to mispronounce his name, Teilhard something or other. I can't remember his last name, but it was, we are not spirits having a human experience. We are spirits having a human experience. Did I say that right? We're not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nailed
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So that really set my course in always looking for something alternative. Like I grew up in church and I went to vacation Bible school in the summer. I was on the usher board. I did the announcement during Sunday service. I did all the things because my mother was at church like 6 days out of the week, right? And it just, after a while, I was like, this doesn't ring true. Like, how are only Christians going to heaven and Jews and Catholics and Muslims, they're going to hell? Like, that doesn't feel right to me. So I was able to stop going to church the minute I bought a car, and I'd be like, yeah, Mom, I'll come a little bit later, and just didn't go. So after I started college and I took world religions, I was like, wow, there's really something to this. This resonates much more with me than the I'm going to hell and hellfire and brimstone does, and Adam and Eve, and none of that stuff made sense to me. So fast forward to when I discovered energy medicine, and I was like, wow, like we are powerful beings. So I'm just going to go all in on this and forget about all that other stuff, even though it's really indoctrination. That's what quote unquote a lot of religions are. It's a lot of rules that we're supposed to follow to keep us from being in our true essence and our true power.
100%. I could not agree more. It's so interesting the way like your story really resonates kind of like with all the pieces that we've experienced just in our own lives.
Definitely.
Yeah. First of all, the fact that you did announcements at church, because same, I did the announcements too. And
Yeah.
and here we are.
Yeah, exactly.
Love it, love it. So you have been kind of walking this spiritual path, this like unlearning, relearning, remembering for quite a while. Where would you say, like right now, what are you studying that's, really got you interested, that's, elevating your spiritual journey?
Right now I am still very fascinated about the human body and what it holds on to, the memory that's in our bodies, in our fascia, and in our nervous system. Like, I personally am still working through past traumas that are in my nervous system. And I think that most human beings are, whether they know it or not, they are storehouses for a lot of trauma. And there's little t trauma and big T trauma. I think there's a huge difference for sure, because sometimes a little t trauma is stubbing your toe, but there are definitely big T traumas that are out there that a lot of people are dealing with and are stored somewhere in their body. People think that they're mostly mind, but our bodies keep the score for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so interesting that we've been talking about the body over the past couple of episodes and it's just come up repeatedly. So it's good to hear that alignment here.
Yeah.
hmm
I find that really interesting too, because I actually studied and practiced dog massage. And we learn a lot about how animals store their pain and their trauma and their experiences within their body as well. So to hear you say that that's something that you're kind of, really delving into right now, I find that really interesting, and it sparked, my mind. And I'm curious about how you were learning about that, and what you're doing to like kind of implement that into your practice.
So I am taking a vagal nerve class so that I can
Woo!
learn about how, our vagal tone, how we can change our vagal tone, because even if you work through your fascia and your muscles, and even though energy is stored within your chakras, um, if you don't address your nervous system and learn to rewire it, then it just becomes very repetitive. Any slight triggering will cause fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And until you can rewire that, you're still kind of trapped in a physiology of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So, a perfect example of that is, I think it was maybe last year, year and a half ago, I was taking an 8-week course. It was a somatic course. And, I like to do all of the things that interest me. I do a little something I call follow the curiosity. So if I read someone's class and it seems interesting to me and I get curious about it, I'm going to take it, especially if it's free. Well, I'm taking all the free stuff, right? And
Second that.
yeah. Um, so this 8-week course, what I didn't realize at the time is that I had all this trauma stored in my body. And your body doesn't release trauma until you feel very safe. And it feels like you can handle it and that you can adequately be okay with whatever is happening. So during this course, I would start to shake, kind of like an animal shakes in the wild, or you see dogs shake when they're really cold. And each time I would do a somatic exercise, like I would do this thing to my jaw, this fascial massage, where you take both of your knuckles in a different direction and kind of torque your jaw, um, and it released so much from my jaw that my entire body started to shake. So I didn't realize how much was stored just in my jaw. Like, we clench our teeth. Some people grind their teeth at night. Some people, it's in their neck. It was just all over. So every single class that I took, and I would take about 3 classes a week, I would go into this deep trauma shake. And thankfully, I knew what it was. Otherwise, it would have scared the hell out of me. And it was at that point that I started to get these subtle little whispers that this has been stored in my body all of these years. And now is the first time that my body feels safe enough to actually release it. And so I was at a breathwork class last night, and for whatever reason, this breathwork class was super powerful. I think it was because all of the women there were healers. And I started to trauma shake again. So another layer, aspect of trauma gone, released, so I can move on to something even deeper.
So cool.
I'm kind of stunned by it's just so fascinating. This is a lot of
Mhm.
personal work that I've been doing also. Like, it's really mirroring the same things that like I've been reading up on, talking with my therapist about. And one of the things that I was tooling around on your website, that the word that kept like jumping out was loops, and like being stuck in like something and kind of keep like
Mhm.
looping around to it. I'm just chomping at the bit to get into how does hypnosis help things like that? And it's totally for my own selfish knowledge, because hypnosis is something I've like looped around many times too. And like, I'll read something about it and be like, no, I don't know. But like, it keeps
Yeah,
looping around. So fill
yeah.
us in.
Okay, so, we all have looping thoughts, and they're of varying degrees. Um, when I worked my normal matrix job, I had an assistant that would be like, God, I'm so stupid. Oh, why I hate it when I do that. And I'd be like, no, no, we don't call ourselves stupid. We don't disparage ourselves. And she would do it quite often, at least once a week, if not more. And that to me is a looping thought. That's one of our outward looping thoughts. Our inward looping thoughts are all kinds of things. Why is he like that? Why did they do this to me? Woe is me. I'm a victim, like things like that. Um, it could also be a pattern, like a pattern of behavior that you just don't like about yourself, and that you afterwards feel a type of way about it. You feel bad about it. There's a sunken heart feeling. So, all of these things are indications that you were out of alignment with who you truly are, and that you're dissatisfied about something about yourself or your life or the world around you. And we all know that the world around us is only a reflection of how we feel about ourselves. So, if you think that someone is triggering you, then you're the one with the trigger. They're just being them. And if you have the trigger, it's up to you, it's up to us to go into our bodies, into our library of memories and histories to find out where that trigger was installed. And it's usually installed between the ages 0 and 7. And that's when we create our belief systems about our lives moving forward. So 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, your beliefs are based between 0 and 7. And a lot of it is things that you heard your mother and father say in the womb, ways that you see your ancestors or your family behave. And these are all things that, are they authentically yours? Things that your culture does. These things aren't authentically you, but they become you because between 0 and 7, that's what you understood to be true.
I absolutely love this. When it, yeah, my notes over here were just like just going. When it comes to hypnosis, and I hear you on talking about like this route that it's getting to, are there levels to hypnosis to where, like, do you work with a client going all into the root first time session, or is there kind of like a process to it that, just depending on how deep the thing is or whatever the case may be?
Um, it's an interesting question, because initially when I had my first hypnosis, I thought, oh, great, I did this hypnosis. I'm all good. I don't need to do another one. And then what I found out was that's not entirely true. If you think about it, we as spiritual beings on a human journey have lived for hundreds of thousands of years, right? Because energy is never born or never dies, it just changes form, right? So if you look at it at that perspective, then you could do hypnosis forever and a day and not touch all of your lives. If we're looking at it in this incarnation, then if you do it once, it's great. It's really better if you do it more than once, because we have a lot of things that are stored within our subconscious that are begging to be brought forward, begging to come to the surface, so that we can eliminate that trigger or deal with that trigger, learn to love that trigger, learn to love that aspect of ourselves, that inner child, so that we can bring more of ourselves to our lives. So, because hypnosis, there are so many different modalities that I use within a hypnosis session, There's inner child work. There's shadow work. There is past life regression. I do Reiki within a session. So one session will do you good, no doubt about it. But multiple sessions is really where the magic happens, and you begin to look at your life differently. You begin to act differently. You begin to truly believe, understand, and know that you are way different than you've been told that you are all of your life.
I know, like that just kind of makes me, that sounds so nice.
Well, I'll give you a little example. My very first time under hypnosis, I was taken to a scene where I was 3 years old, and I'll never forget it. And I'll also explain a little bit about how hypnosis looks and feels from the inside, right? Because I see it from both perspectives. From me having hypnosis done on me, and for me doing hypnosis on, offering hypnosis to someone. So I was in my hypnosis class, and the instructor took me under as a volunteer. And the thing that I saw was myself as a little tiny child. I was about 3 years old, and I just knew it. Like, some people see it, some people hear it, some people sense it, some people know it, right? It uses all of your clair senses while you're in hypnosis. So I knew that I was 3. I just knew it. And also, I'll back up to say, I don't remember much of my childhood, which is why I got into hypnosis in the first place, because I heard this hypnotherapist say, if you don't remember your childhood, you have a lot of closed doors. And I wanted to know what was behind those doors. So, very first time in hypnosis, 3-year-old child in a crib in the dark. I could hear people speaking, talking, laughing just outside the door. I started crying because I needed something, don't know what it was, some attention, whatever. I was ready to be picked up, and no one came to get me. So I kind of cried myself out. And when someone finally came to get me, it was my cousin. And he picked me up, and he was about 16 at the time. And, kind of rough, like a 16-year-old boy would do. And he took me out to the family, and they were all like laughing. And it felt like they were laughing at me because I was just, all tear-stained face, snot, the whole thing, crying myself a little hysterical. And what that said to me was, and how that informs my life, or how I feel that it informs my life, is that I have to take care of myself. And that if I ask for help, they won't help me, they'll laugh at me.
Oh, shit.
Very first,
Wow.
that blew my mind. And I don't remember that. And to boot, I asked, my mom is no longer with us, so I asked my aunt if that happened. And she said, oh yeah, your mom was in the hospital when you were 3. And you stayed with all of your different aunts at different times.
It's a little mind-blowing. And like Adreyauna, you've experienced it, right? Or like maybe not something like specifically like that, but you've had like a hypnosis session, correct?
Yeah.
Is that what it's like? Like, is that really what it's like? I totally believe you, Yolanda, obviously, but I'm just, since we've got 2 people here who have like like compare and contrast, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm very fascinated.
Yeah. It was, oh, what's the word I want to use? Very easy. I have to feel like I have to describe the whole experience. It was easy to go into and just tap right into listening to her voice and what she was directing me to do, and kind of just like getting into a state to where I was just existing. And so that was the part I was really worried about, that my body and my mind was going to actually resist going under, but it was, my mind was like, let's dive in, girl. We're ready. And so that was really good. And for me, I went to Yolanda because I was really struggling with like body, and like I've gained weight over the past few years, and I just such bad body dysmorphia, just like all the things. And I really wanted to dive into like, why is this such a deep issue for me? Because this isn't something new. I've been dealing with this for as long as I can remember. And one of the first memories that came up was, again, I was young. I had to be like 7-ish, maybe 8, but really leaning towards 7, because my brothers were still little. And so it was just this memory of us at an aquarium. The whole family was there, and it was our first big family vacation, and it was just such a carefree time. I felt so loved, but I was particularly paying attention to my grandpa in this memory. Everything else was like grayed out. It was very visual for me. So I'm glad you brought that up, Yolanda, about what that experience is like. So it was a very visual thing. Everything else was almost like grayed out, but him and like what he was doing, just walking around, was so vivid in color. And I was confused as to why he would show up when I'm trying to work on my body. Like, the fuck? But at that time, like right after I came out of the hypnosis, it was just like reminding me of a time when things were carefree and like I was loved. I didn't really have to worry about my body. It was just a thing that was carrying me. It was a vessel. It was muscle. It was bone, instead of being like this thing that was up for debate, up for gaze, up for pleasure. And now, reflecting back on that, he was the only person in my life at that time who had not commented on my body before, whether it was negative or positive.
Wow.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And that was wild for that to connect for me. I'm like, fuck, oh, that clicks. And it's 2 years, almost maybe a year and a half, I don't know, since that session, and I'm still having revelations from that. So it was it's just like layers and layers and layers. I could have talked about that session for hours, but even now, like, there's still stuff that's unfolding. So from that session, it wasn't like an immediate, and I wish I would have kept going with it, but I felt like that was the door that I needed to unlock to really start working on like my body image issues, and like, why was I so self-deprecating, and like, why did I hate it so much? Because now the relationship I have with my body from that session, I realized I didn't start off hating my body. I wasn't taught to hate my body at all, but I was taught to make it presentable for others. And that was causing shame. That was causing hurt. And so I had to start back at that. And I actually would take my time getting ready whenever, like I'm doing something, because that made me appreciate my body a little more. Still causes me anxiety, especially when I'm trying to like pick out clothes, but it started a new process of like, you can do this. Your body is just a body and it's okay. So I almost have to neutralize my relationship with my body, and then I can move into like actually loving it, if that makes sense.
Wow. It makes so much sense. And thank you for sharing that. Wow. All off of one hypnosis session. That's
Okay, I
amazing.
have a question here then. So both of you referred to an experience during your hypnosis that you went back in the past. Is it typical for a session that you would travel somewhere in the past?
That's a great question, because it happens all types of ways.
Okay.
And typically I have people bring 2 or 3 issues or questions that are alive in their field, right? And it could be a person that wants to stop smoking. It could be body issues. It could be their relational field and how they're dealing with their relationships with their partner or their boss or their children or what have you. And of those 2 or 3 questions, your higher self and your subconscious are really in control. So you can say, I want to talk about rainbows and moonbeams, and your subconscious is like, no, no, this is what's for your highest and best good, and this is what we're going to talk about. And typically there will be 3 or 4 scenes. Sometimes they're from your current life, sometimes it's a past life. And every now and again, when I get especially a practitioner client who has done a lot of the inner work, it's not really about going in, it's about going out to a future time. You know, like everything, past, present, and future is all happening at the same time anyway. So it's not really out. But example is I had a session on Friday with another hypnotherapist, and she was able to channel the entire thing. And one of her guides came through and just talked about how her future was laid out and what her next steps needed to be. So it happens a lot of different ways. I find that people that do a lot of self work have a little bit more fun in their sessions, for sure.
That's really interesting because they've already been looking at the past, maybe, you know, when they're working on those
Right.
shadow parts of themselves.
Exactly. I mean, shadow work is the linchpin for everything. Let me just, it is the magic button. It is the silver bullet. It is an arrow. It's a golden arrow to anything that you want to change or anything that you want to elevate in your life. Your shadow work is about your core beliefs and how you feel about yourself and how you integrate that shadow.
Yes. Yes. This is
I'm
so
just
cool.
taking notes. Yeah, that's all. I'm just caught up taking notes here. That's
Yeah.
And people hate it.
Wow.
People hate it. They're so afraid of shadow work. But it's so easy. It gets easier and easier and easier. And the more room that you make in your interior beingness, the more room that you have for more good stuff. You know, it's like going to a buffet and already being full and then see the dessert table and be like, I want dessert, but you're already too full.
Absolutely. So I'm interested to know, for you as the practitioner doing this hypnosis work and bringing in your Reiki, your energy healing, your own channeling abilities, how do you care for yourself? What are your things?
Oh, well, I will just harken back to another past hypnosis session that I had where my higher self came forward and said, literally, her spiritual hygiene is garbage. And I literally was like, wow, so savage.
I feel like that's my spirit guide calling me out.
So savage. Who knew that my higher self was like so rough, you know? And ever since then, let me tell you, I clean my energy almost every night. You know, I have to. This is what I do. And I deal with people that are dealing with some heavy, heavy issues, you know? So I spend time in nature. I go sit next to a tree for hours at a time. I take salt baths, and not Epsom salt, Dead Sea salt. I don't want no man-made salt. I speak love to my water. I oxygenate my water. I I burn Palo Santo, I burn sage, I do all that stuff, but I also do a lot of inner work. And, you know, You can have your black tourmaline crystals, you can burn your sage and your Palo Santo, but if you're not doing shadow work, you're not doing enough.
There it is. There it is.
I hate to tell everybody that, but it's the truth.
Well, because what's the point if you're not looking at all of it, right? Like, if you just keep the dark thing in the corner and you're like, no, I'm not looking at that. Like, you're missing the whole point, right?
Right. And, it doesn't have to be so daunting. I have to say that since I have befriended my inner children, they are much more amiable to being like, hey, I need some attention. Told me that you would stick up for me. So let's make it happen. Sometimes they come to me 2 and 3 at a time. Sometimes my inner children is a 20-year-old. My inner child is a 20-year-old. And the memory will come to me. I'll ask myself, where do I feel it in my body? I feel the trigger, right? I feel a type of way. Oh my God, I feel a type of way. Where is it in my body? Oh, I feel it in my stomach. Okay. My solar plexus chakra. All right, I'm feeling disempowered about something. It's not what that person said. I'm feeling disempowered about something. All right, feel into that energy. Let it expand. What memory comes into my mind? Oh, I see a memory of myself in my purple cutoff pants, at the playground where this person did this to me. What belief did I believe about myself because of that? And then that inner child will come to you and they'll be like, hey, this is how I feel. Then you just have a little dial. It gets easier and easier. Now I can just do it. And everybody else can too. Like, that's the beauty of the process. I teach you how to do that so that it's not a big hairy monster in the corner that you don't want to look over at.
Wow. You are just a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah. You know why? Because I love it. It's a game. It is a game changer. Let me just.
So, as far as for people who are interested in diving into hypnosis, what can they do to prepare for their session?
Number one thing I would say is don't drink coffee beforehand. I would say meditate, but not everybody has a meditation process. But the more that you can quiet your mind and you can quiet the chatter in your mind, you can quiet your mind from saying, why am I seeing this? This doesn't make sense. Who is that? Why are they here? The more you can stop that internal dialogue and just kind of go with it, the better off you'll be. So I would say a meditation practice, if you have it, or just cultivate the ability to still your mind. And coffee goes hand in hand with that because when you drink caffeine, it increases the chatter. I think those are the two biggest things, and have a willingness to take a look at some things that might feel a little uncomfortable to your conscious mind. But because you're seeing it, and I think, Adreyauna, I think you can probably attest to this, because you're seeing it from an observer's point of view, it doesn't feel as bad or as heavy as people think that it will.
Ooh, yeah. I'm so glad that you just named that thing. Yes, I thought that it was gonna be like I was gonna walk away fucking bawling and just like feeling so in my feelings, but it was actually super light.
Yeah.
And I left the session just feeling like, okay, wow, needed that. Glad that it was like one of the best there. It was therapy. I mean, duh. But for me, it was almost even more lighter than having a Reiki session even.
Yeah.
And that was absolutely incredible. And I was not anticipating that. I will say the day after, I wasn't feeling heavy, but it was more so like my body was almost like calibrating to the fact that we just did this
For sure.
this work,
Yeah.
and all of this came to light. Like, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah.
So
And that-
definitely.
And that is, your session was relatively simple, I guess, if I use that. There are sessions where I remove entities from people. And I go back and do what's called a soul retrieval, where you leave a part of your soul in a situation and you fragment. And those entity removals, implant removals, and soul retrievals, the next day or two, or maybe the next 2 weeks, you feel different. Like right after, people will feel lighter and better. But in a day, like you're really, like you said, recalibrating how you live in the world because something energetically has changed quite drastically.
So it's not like it just puts you in the observer's seat. Like you like also observe it, but like you also kind of relive it and feel it. Kind of. Or is that different for everybody too?
You do relive it and refeel it. But again, for my example, for the 3-year-old, I relived it. I didn't know that I had lived it the first time because it was in my
fascinating.
my body. So, it just really informed me, but I wasn't, crying like a 3-year-old. I didn't feel abandoned or anything. So I was able to observe it from a distance and just understand it, just see it for what it was, and have a different understanding of it.
That is very, very interesting. That leads me to one of the questions that I wanted to get to. Will you debunk some hypnosis like myths? Like, I have to imagine it's not all like cruise ship, hypnosis type. Like, what is it? What's kind of the process? Like, people I saw, it's all Zoom. You do all Zoom calls, correct?
Yeah. I do an occasional in person, but yeah, I do mostly Zoom.
And like, do you, the thing that I keep looping around to for myself, like trying to like put myself, like if I were to do it, how do you like relinquish the control? Like I'm such a control freak. Like that's why you mentioned about like people having trouble with meditation. Yeah. I struggle with that for that reason. So like, what would you tell me if I were setting up an appointment, like someone who's nervous about that?
Well, I will begin by saying that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, right? Just like all healing is self-healing. If you don't believe in energy and you don't believe in your subconscious and you don't believe in quieting your mind, it's much harder to do. Now, I also will say that I have hypnotized accountants. They're very analytical, very in their head. I have hypnotized police officers, very in their head, very analytical. I have hypnotized psychologists. And of those three, all of them said, oh, this is just for fun. This is just for self-discovery. The psychologist was bawling like a child, deep, deep, deep in it. And for the accountant and the police officer, if I know that you're super analytical, then, God, I don't want to give a secret away, but I will do something that I don't normally do for people. And I'm not going to tell you what it is because I might have to do it and I don't want people to know. But it's, it's just a normal thing that people pay to have done. It's just like a, like a thing. Super vague, I know, but yeah.
No, but I kind of get it. I am someone who like I tend to struggle between like the woo-woo and like you said, like being like kind of like an analytical, needing like proof kind of person. Yeah. And like you said, the first step is definitely in all magical things is you have to believe in it first.
For sure. For sure. You know, when I started this journey, I did not know that it was a journey of awakening. I just wanted to feel better, right? I wanted to feel better in my life. I wanted to feel better in my relationships. I wanted to feel better in my body. I wanted to feel better in my head. And along the way, I just started walking this awakened path where I am in process of eliminating all of the things that do not serve me so that I can bring my full self to my life. And not everybody is at that level for sure, but the more curious you are about the things that don't feel good, the better off that you are. And the easier it is to lean into a process of your own betterment.
Very well said. That was very well said. Thank you.
Love that. Love that. I have something, it's a comment that's gonna lead into a question here. On Monday, I got to attend a full moon ritual with a group that I haven't practiced with before. And the person who was leading, part of the ritual, we did a guided meditation. And
Mhm.
during that, we were led to, we went into a forest. We were walking a path, and we identified what our biggest predator was, or the weakness that was inside ourselves that we see as like our biggest detriment.
Wow.
And then the other part of that was then trying to turn that into a positive or into our strength. So
Mhm.
from the weakness into a strength. And after this was all over, we were kind of like just hanging out and debriefing and chatting and everything. And another participant asked the person who was leading it if he had any experience in hypnosis, because some of the words that he was using, the way that he repeated things in a pattern, repeating things like 3 times and things like that. She said it sounded very familiar to her, like hypnosis. And he said, yes, he had been trained in hypnosis techniques, and it was intentional the way that he used the wording.
Mhm.
And so then that kind of like sparked my mind. Like, I've always thought of hypnosis as something kind of like far away, or something that I've never done, or, couldn't grasp, something foreign. But I've done a lot of guided meditations and things like that. And it just kind of opened my mind to maybe kind of how similar those things could be.
Amazing question statement. I'm sorry, that was a statement, right?
No, that leads to the question. Like, do you think that these things are similar?
So you were hypnotized.
That's what I was wondering.
Just as we are hypnotized when we drive every day, when we get absorbed in a book or a movie, when we are having a deep conversation with a good friend. It's just a state of consciousness where you are hyper focused. So, as you fall asleep every night, whatever the last thing is that you tell yourself is what your subconscious is going to be ruminating on all night long. So, that is also a form of hypnosis. So, people are in a state of hypnosis more often than they think, than they know. It's just when it becomes a formal thing, people are afraid of it. But when you're driving to work, jamming out to music, and you go the same route every day, you're in a state of hypnosis. Not a deep one, but you are in one.
That really makes sense. I was just thinking about
Like,
whenever you're like
yeah, I'm the
driving
mind
and
blown emoji over here. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, when you're driving and you're going, like you said, the same route, and then all of a sudden you're there,
Yep.
and like you don't realize how much time has passed.
Yep.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then how do you plan a session whenever you are working with a client? like, do you have like a certain protocol or a way that you kind of set up the session, or is it pretty much just kind of led in the moment based on the feedback that you get from them?
You know, it's a very call and response kind of thing. So, no two sessions are the same, no two sessions are alike. Um, I now have a system where I do a thing where I go into a workshop, my workshop every morning. And in that workshop, if I have a session that day, I will meet with the client and kind of remotely, you know, just like there are remote viewers that can see things in other places, I remotely tap into that person's energy and I ask their higher self what it is that they would like or need to work on. And then I get little hits, inspirations, and that's how I will start a session. Now, again, everybody has their list of 2 to 3 things that they are bringing to a session, but I like having that little bit of time where my higher self is talking to their higher self to see what is the most important thing to bring forward. And then it's just you know, we start the hypnosis, and wherever you go is where we go. I can think we're going one way or one place, but we end up somewhere else. So it really takes some very deep listening and some intuitive nudges to really flesh out a situation and get to what's really at the heart of an issue.
That's super cool.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you are
Wow.
a true artist in your own craft. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I love it,
Absolutely.
and it's really fun, and it's so fulfilling to be able to help people in a very deep and meaningful way.
Mm.
Oh, and that's one of the reasons why it's really such a joy to me to be able to bring this process to people who really need it. You know, and right now, especially during Black History Month, I am African American and Indigenous, and you know, we have endured some of the most insane atrocities.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that my generational line carries it, I want to bring as much healing forward as I possibly can in my lifetime. This is my lineage. I also had a hypnosis session where I was a 3-year-old little girl, Indian Native American girl, and uh, my entire village was killed, massacred.
Mm.
And I remember this just like it was yesterday. I remember my hypnotherapist asking why I was here. Why did you survive? And I said, grace.
Mm.
Grace that has brought me, oh my God, I'm getting chills right now.
Yeah.
It's grace that's brought me here. And I said, wait a minute, I can heal them. I can release their souls. And I gave Reiki to everybody that was there so that their souls could pass through to the light. And the very last scene of that hypnosis was me touching the ground and taking a handful of earth and putting it in my pocket. And I researched that later, and it said that some Native Americans would carry their land in their pocket.
Mm.
Oh,
Mm.
wow.
Mm. Mm.
Wow.
Right?
That I excuse me,
Thank
I
you.
appreciate how you talk about the joy that you're bringing. I believe that like bringing joy to work makes all the difference, and like you can hear the smile on your face when you talk about what you do. I really appreciate you coming on and filling us in on everything here. You have just given kind of so much. We touched on so many things, and I'm really grateful that you joined us here tonight.
Thank you very much for having me, for sure. I do have a past life regression and ancestral healing planned for this Friday.
Ooh.
It's a free one, and there's one on the 28th also. That will be by donation, but there will be lots of healing and some great energy and a lot of understanding of who you are. It's called a meditation, but ultimately it is a hypnosis.
Thanks for debunking that for me.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Will you email us the links for those things so we can make sure to attach them on so people can know where to find that, and we'll make sure to attach your website and all of that as well. And I saw you're on Instagram. Are you on any other social medias that people can find you on?
I'm just on the gram.
Excellent.
Right.
Excellent.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This was everything. Love having this, especially in this month. And we definitely are going to have you back so we can dive even deeper.
Yes.
I would love that. This has been a blast. Thank you, ladies.
Yes.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Well, with that, y'all, have a beautiful, beautiful day, evening, whatever time that you're listening to this. And as always, stay magical.
Stay magical.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Magical Aspirations. Be sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Magical Aspirations to keep up with the latest and the greatest from Annalisa, Adreyauna, and Reverend Raven, and to join in on the Magical Aspirations conversations. Come check out our website, magicalaspirations.com, to find bonuses from our guests, our Magical Aspirations blog, and to reach out to our magical hosts with questions, comments, reviews, or ideas for future episodes. We are so grateful for each and every one of you listening. Thank you again, and as always, stay true to your magic.